I'm Chad Ruthermans.
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
And welcome to NOCLIP Pocket. Hey, I'm going to need to see some ID. Today, we're going to be talking about The Bouncer, which was developed by Squaresoft and Dream Factory, was published by Squaresoft, was released in 2000 on the PlayStation 2.
But first, if you give us a like or a rating, it would be greatly appreciated.
So, The Bouncer is a 3D brawler, and wow.
It was also a launch title for the PS2.
Yep. It's obviously, as a launch title, is one of Square's first games. Mm-hmm. I say one of, it is the first game
one, yeah.
That released on the PlayStation 2. And I have a suspicion that it is sort of a proof of concept or like a hardware test type game.
Yeah, it feels like, honestly, I feel like this is something that companies should do now, maybe even more so. Because it's like a way to like spend less money and like cut your teeth on developing for a new system.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems kind of smart. You end up with a goofy product, maybe.
Maybe.
But I don't know. It feels like it's probably like a worthwhile endeavor to like make a smaller game to get some experience.
Yeah. It is that would be cool for people, and I mean there's not anything saying that companies don't occasionally do that, but it isn't something. I've never played anything that's quite as clear as this one that is what they were going for, because there's so much like we played Final Fantasy X last year, so like fairly recently. And
it doesn't feel like it was that long ago.
No, yeah, it wasn't. It's not too far back, and I can totally see the overlap here, even though the games could not be more different on every level.
Yeah, like some of the animations, like Tidus's run.
Yeah, all like the animations, the like cuts to and from pre-rendered cutscenes. The fucking weird R&B track that ends the game.
Yeah.
It feels like there's a lot of stuff they were doing to test the waters in this game, and man, it is a wild ride in a way that I was not expecting.
Yeah. I was like, this was on the periphery of my knowledge of his existence, you know. It was always just kind of skirting there, like an eye floater. Like, if I ever looked directly at it, I would forget that it existed.
Now you say it. Go on. For me, it actually ended up being not quite as weird as I would have expected, but I have a fucked up imagination, I guess. I don't know. I just seeing pictures of it and thinking like Square Enix with no budget and no one like peeking in on what they're doing. PS2 game. I don't know. I just imagined it could get really, really, really weird. Sure.
And it only gets really weird.
Yeah. I think it is probably best. First of all, I guess, spoiler warning. The I didn't want to say it earlier, and that thing was, man, I wish I could have forgotten about this game. But one, I played it 3 hours ago, so it's impossible for me to have forgotten it already. And two, I actually kind of really enjoyed my time with this.
Yeah.
Probably because it's really short. But we have to go into this with this narrative, because it is the craziest thing. I mean, it's not the craziest thing. It is not what I expected going in, to a larger degree than how crazy I expected the craziest thing to have been. There's a wider gulf there.
That's fair.
And so the part that is wild to begin with is that the game starts in space and shows you a satellite flying by. And they're talking about how they've built a satellite that's going to take energy from the sun, convert it into microwave radiation, and fire that at a Australia-sized dish that's just jammed into the Earth's crust. And that's going to create energy. This does not play a part at all in the story.
Oh, it's the setup where the space laser comes from, I guess.
That is true, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has that, like, Roland Emmerich movie feel that would have been going around in the 2000s.
It 100% does. I was expecting in multiple parts of this game to early 2000s forced variety in the form of, like, maybe in this level you'll fly the plane and there'll be some janky plane controls or something. But in reality, you do the same thing mechanically the whole game, but the story decides it's going to branch out, and suddenly people are robots that you didn't expect to be robots, and a character who's never been introduced to you before shows up in a file on a computer, and you're like, oh, and like there's like this teary moment when she's killed where he's like, rest in peace, and I'm like, who? And he doesn't even remember because he sees her picture on the file and then walks 30 feet to the left, sees her in person, and she's like, you don't remember me, do you? And he's like, oh, I don't know, guess I don't. It just goes in a lot of directions that confused me.
Yeah, so part of that is because the game is clearly meant to be played multiple times.
Yeah.
But no, I had a note too about how, like, there are parts where you can just split off and be playing as one character for a long time, and that I feel like that really hurts a single playthrough. Because like, what's his name, Lau?
Yeah.
He ended up just getting like completely left behind. But then just because like I had been rotating through them and he just got the short straw. So that can happen, and it's kind of unfortunate if you care about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the way that it played out for me is I had a difficult time on a boss, and then I said, okay, well, fuck the other characters. I'm just going to level one character consistently until the end of the game so that I don't get stuck on something. And so I did that. Sion got every point of every single point that I could muster. Got pumped into him, and I really won the game when I unlocked the ground sweep move, which is just nutso, and it's the only move you need for the rest of the world. So, yeah, I agree. I ended up sort of in a single storyline track, even though the game definitely wants you in multiple.
Yeah, I ended up using Sion the most as well, but like, what's his name, Volt,
yeah,
was like right behind him, because like I ended up picking him where you first split off, and I just played as him for a long time, and he got leveled up a lot, as well. But yeah, Lao God ended up being like severely underleveled than the other two.
Yeah, I find it weird. Maybe this is me. And is like a anime racial bias that I was unfamiliar with before. Everyone who is in an anime, I always assume is a Japanese person, because they tend to not draw people differently. They all look sort of the same. And in this game, you can play as Sion. Starts with a G. Is a German name.
Oh, yeah, his last name.
Yeah. And then Volt Kruger, which is also a pretty German name, potentially like Austrian, in that sort of area. And he kind of looks the part, because he's like I don't know, he kind of looks like the anime version of Arnold Schwarzenegger with horns.
Sure.
And then Lau is the only guy who has just like kind of a normal Japanese name. And it was really strange for me to look at that and be like, is there anything I should be applying to these characters based on their names? Not really.
Yeah. Yeah, because I watched anime as a kid, I always kind of saw anime characters as white people.
Yeah.
But I imagine if you approach it as an adult, that makes a lot more sense to assume that they're Japanese.
Yeah, it's like the anime like hair aesthetic and stuff is just like that's an association I have built.
Yeah. It's definitely a good point, though. It can be kind of hard to tell if a character's like nationality is supposed to matter, if there's some flavor of white.
Right.
Yeah, because they all are kind of drawn the same.
Yeah, it's tough to tell. It's not hard to tell them apart, that's for sure. But it is hard to tell if like their background means a lot. And I also want to note, while we're kind of talking about the story, the background flashcards that they give you in between levels,
like the little lore notes,
where they go away for me exactly before I can read the last line.
Yep,
every time.
that's usually a thing for me because I read a little slow. But yeah, no, and they 90% of them seem to be about Volt.
That would make, yeah, I mean, he's a big dude.
Yeah, like, he used to work for, like, the Evil Organization or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess he has the most backstory to be told.
Yeah, I only started noticing it when it was, like, it was, because I remember there was, like, a bit about Sion's Master Wong.
Oh, right.
Who shows up in this game for 13 seconds.
His karate master.
Yeah, and apparently he and Roosevelt. What's his name? Rousdower. Ronnie the bear.
You're talking about the villain?
Yeah.
It's something with a D.
It is a D.
I think it sounds a little bit like Dragon. If you made Dragon like some kind of like weird like, I don't know what nationality of name.
Yeah, you are right. It is a D name that has that kind of a sound to
it.
But he also was an apprentice of Master Wong.
Right, it's a classic, like a Cowboy Bebop kind of thing. Like, we used to be comrades, and now we're rivals destined to kill each other.
Right. And it's the most wild interconnection point. It felt like a soap opera to me. Yeah. Where you show up, you don't know anything about this company as Sion. And it turns out that this girl, who you found on the street, is the sister. It's a robot. Is the sister of the guy who runs it.
Mm-hmm.
And both you and that guy studied under the same karate master, which it just seems like, man, there should have been more of a connection between them.
Yeah, you think he would have known that he had a sister that died?
Yeah, but it's Volt. The guy who you work with, I guess, he's a coworker with horns that nobody ever asks about. He's the one who has the in with them. But the guy who makes the call to get on the train is Lau, who I do not know what his connection to the company is.
I don't remember either. It's like a big waste of your Steve Blum. Prolific voice actor. He plays the least significant character, and he's the best voice talent in the game.
Yep. It is a shame.
Oh, God, I feel like there's directions to go here.
There are. So, what did you think about the story? You like it?
Okay. This is one thing to talk about. Like, one time we were talking about anime off the cast, and you compared it to a soap opera, as you just did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like the most spot-on comparison I've ever heard, because it's not something I'd ever thought about. But like a lot of like anime tropes do like revolve around that kind of melodrama in a way that like I'd never noticed before. And this game does have a very like simple like trope-ish anime plot, and in some classic Square Enix isms where it's like more complicated than it needs to be for the story being told.
Mm-hmm.
But like it is kind of very enjoyable schlock.
Yeah.
Like, it was very weird and, as I said, more complicated than it needed to be, but it was like fun.
Yeah, we talked about this on Resident Evil 4, weirdly. That game feels like a B movie. Because it stars Jerry Seinfeld, but this one really does bring that B-movie sort of like jam to it, because everything that happens, it feels like they were being very sincere, whereas Resident Evil 4 feels like it knows it's self-aware.
It's like intentional camp.
Yeah,
this one has that like, as you said, that like more authentic B-movie feel where they were trying.
Yeah, when he drops a laser beam on a hospital. Like,
And it's the exact same Independence Day shot.
Yeah.
Like, we get it. You saw Independence Day.
That's when I was like, oh, because they want you for that to hit, you know? They want you to be like, oh, God,
like,
that
we did this on the
hospital.
PlayStation 2. Oh, yeah.
It's
Put
fucking
this in
badass.
put this in a PS2 tech demo reel thing at fucking Space World 2000. They still did that back then.
Did they do a Space World? Am I
Yeah,
just
it was
unaware of
That
this?
was before E3. There was a thing called Space World.
Oh, weird. I feel like I've completely lost that part of my memory. But yeah, they want that to hit and and it does look incredible for the time. I'm not gonna fucking take anything away from it. But my reaction to it was like, you could have done anything to close down this like shitty brick hospital before now, but you've chosen to just nuke it. Like, just escalating it to the high. You had to become. Your sister died. You underwent karate training. You became the head of a company and built a laser beam that can shoot from a satellite in space, so that you can just shut down this one hospital for a slight that they did to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of those things where it was just like, this is like this whole sequence of events that like you can put the pieces together, but none of them really connect, and it made it really funny for me.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed all of the story of this game.
So do you want to talk more about mechanics now that we've covered the story?
Probably should, yeah. What are fucking 16 minutes? We got it, yeah.
Yeah. So the first thing that stood out to me about the way it plays is that it feels so slow for the kind of game this is.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where it made it super easy, I thought. I don't know if you had a similar experience.
Yeah, I died twice.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I died on 2 levels.
Right.
Both to the same guy, weirdly. And one of them I died 4 times. And then after that, I only died the 1 time. So, I agree. I think it ended up being kind of easy because it was slow and you could easily predict what people were doing.
Yeah, like I played this in 2 sittings and I did not die at all the first one. Like I stopped right before there's a little bit of a spike. And I had a little bit of a harder time because I was trying to switch between all the characters, but it was pretty smooth sailing. There's the one level where you have to escort, what's her name, like Delphine, something with a D. The girl.
Yeah.
It's the sister of the guy. Dominique.
I didn't look it up, actually. Yeah. I unlocked my phone, but...
You have to escort her, and there are all these robot enemies. It's probably the level with the most enemies in the game. And you can just unlock the robots by just kicking them repeatedly.
Yep.
It's a very tedious, but also very funny trek through, I don't know, the inner workings of the space station or wherever you are.
Yeah. I very nearly just ran through that level because I saw the big robot and was like, oh, fuck this, and like just went past him. But then like eventually I stopped and started punching a robot and was like, oh, he just can't do anything.
Yeah, the only ones that are a problem are the little ones that can just like keep knocking you over.
And sometimes they like will stagger outside of your punch range and then they can get a hit in. The big intimidating robots can do nothing of the sort. They just stand there and take it. TM NOCLIP 2019 or whenever that was. Man, yes, I agree. The robots were really stupid, and then they started to put them into other fights as like ads, and I was like, you didn't test this. Like, you didn't know. Like, I want to forgive them for it, but it is very stupid because basically it's just a time buffer before you can do the actual fighting.
Right.
Also, when the robots die, they just stand still.
They just freeze.
It feels like a bug, but I don't think that it is. On the combat, though, I keep wanting to hedge this bit that I need to get into way later. So not now. I've played like a number of 2D beat 'em ups, things like your Double Dragons, your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games. I've played these games, and in these games, you go around, you hit people, you beat them up, knock them down, whatever. And at no point during those games do they ever make you run around and go into rooms, which was, I think, a mistake that this game made, because I didn't know where I was going. Which I guess is immersive, because neither did my character. I really felt like I was there, lost in a facility. And it chose the weirdest times to do stuff. So you would like go in, there'd be a loading screen. You'd run around, go in a door, there's a loading screen. You would go 3 steps off camera, and it would go to a cutscene. And you're like, why was any of that there? Like,
dude, they're figuring it out. That's why they made this.
I mean, that's
they were like,
fair.
on our next game, we're not going to chop the cutscene up into 5 pieces. Now we know.
Yep. So when you die, you don't have to hit start, skip, start,
Yeah.
skip over and over.
We know we want to figure out how to not do that.
There's a cutscene at some point. It's right after you fight the weirdly persistent guy who looks like Raiden from Metal Gear Solid 2, but in the dark timeline.
Mm-hmm.
You beat him the first time, and there's a cutscene where Lau goes like, "Let's go," and then you go, and there's a cutscene for him to do that for no reason, and then it goes to another cutscene. Like, they really had to have like been like slavishly attached to their script, where they're like, Lau's got to say "let's go" here, and we got to make a cutscene for it. But then the next one is in a different environment, so we have to switch to a different cutscene for some reason. It's a weird game.
Yeah. It's definitely sloppy.
We were talking about combat, though, huh?
Yeah. What do you think about the fact that there are 3 playable characters?
I probably won't have too much bad to say about the actual mechanics, weirdly. I love that there are 3 playable characters. And I like how they're split up in a way, because Sion should just be bad based on his stats at the beginning of the game. But he's really fast in comparison to the other 2. And that just isn't shown on the stat screen. And so once I kind of got a handle on that, like, okay, his defense stats are really high, but he moves real slow. His attack stats are high, but he moves a little bit slow. He's like Lau is like an all-rounder. And then Sion is a fast guy who his stats are bad, but you can pump him up.
Right.
Once I kind of got a handle on that, I was like, this is cool. Like, I could see myself going through the game multiple times to play with the different characters.
Yeah. Like, to me, yeah, the speed is the only thing that really felt that different about playing each of them. Other than that, they felt mostly the same to me. So yeah, like I like what it adds. Like, I feel like this would be the perfect sleepover game. Like, if you have like a friend come over, you can play through the whole thing in an hour and a half ish. And I know, and I feel like, yeah, you have the different characters, and it's like an excuse to go through it. Yeah, I don't know. I think it adds more narratively and or like experience wise. But yeah, I also do like that there's like that difference between fast, slow in the all round character as well. It's just enough, I think.
Yeah, I think that is true. I think it's enough to get them separated, but not enough to provide like long-term depth for the game.
Yeah, for the length that it is, I think it works well enough.
Yeah, which is kind of a detriment to wanting to do multiple playthroughs, because really you'd be doing it just to like max stats out. Otherwise, it's
to
the
see
same.
all the other cutscenes that you missed.
But you would definitely not have. You would have to play through the game multiple times with all characters, and there are unlockable characters in the game.
Yeah.
In order to like actually like get all the moves or whatever. Like, this is a game that if you were a very dedicated person could take up like probably 60 to 70 hours to get through. everything, but if you aren't dedicated in any way, like me, you play it one time and you go, okay, I can imagine that guy doing that, but I couldn't do it.
Yeah, and I mean, as we've talked about before, like, this came out in an era where that was more of a common thing. That, like, you would get a game and you would just play it, milk it for all it was worth.
Yeah, it's weird because I remember doing it, but cannot imagine doing it now.
Oh yeah, like, I've never been that way, really. Like, my favorite games I would play over and over, but like the average game I would get, that wasn't the case for me.
Right. I'd always be trying to 100% stuff. I don't know why. I
some
wasted
people,
so
yeah.
much time as a kid.
It just appeals to some people. I mean, you had nothing but time as a kid, so.
That is true. Hey, why do all of your attacks knock everybody down?
I don't know, but it's very overpowered to just do like a sweep, like a low attack, and knock the boss down.
It's weird because the way that this game is structured, like, I felt like I wanted it to be snappier, like a fighting game, but once I like realized that it was not that kind of a game, it was a slow game, I was very annoyed by the fact that I couldn't like just hit a guy 2 times. Like, you hit a guy 1 time and he falls over, and then you gotta wait for him to get back up.
Yeah, I think it's like is it like the middle attacks maybe don't knock people over?
Do like combos?
Yeah,
or whatever?
you have like the high attacks which knock people over, and the low attacks do too.
Yeah,
I think there was like a middle attack that didn't.
I know the X button attack.
Yeah,
knocked a guy over.
Right, that's the low attack.
Yeah,
and triangle's high.
The triangle attack, I swear, knocked people over.
Yeah,
but I could be wrong.
And then I think maybe square is middle.
Square pops them up in the air.
Oh yeah, that's that move. Never mind, they all knock you.
And if you press circle, you do the spin move, which knocks them over. Also,
yeah.
It just seems like everything ends up with the person on the ground, and I'm wondering if I do know a thing that could have happened to have gone wrong, and that is the game uses pressure-sensitive button controls, which I don't know if the controller we have still works. So I don't know if we were able to do that. So I think
the
lighter
PlayStation 2
attacks
have that?
It did, yeah. That was one of the things about the like in Metal Gear Solid 2, if you held down the triangle button, it would bring up the gun or whatever, and then if you half released it, you'd put the gun down.
Right. Weird.
Yeah, it's really strange. So I don't think that we actually were able. So maybe all the attacks didn't have to knock people down. Maybe we made the game harder than it needed to be.
Well, you mean easier than it needed to be?
We made it easier than it needed to be.
The rest of my thoughts are kind of stray and don't have like a theme.
One of my thoughts is I need to know how old Sion is, and so that's about the level we're at.
I think he's supposed to be 18.
Okay. Well, if I can take him away, because Dominique's 15.
It's not that big of an age difference.
Still illegal. That's statutory.
I'm pretty sure the age of consent is 13 in Japan.
Weird.
Yeah, I think they have like the lowest in the world, like of like first world countries or non-third world countries.
Interesting.
That don't have one, maybe.
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, that also means that he started kung fu training when he was 5 years old. These are the details I extracted from the game. I said, that girl's too young for you. Also, how are you a toddler in kung fu training with fucking Master Wong?
It's like Jedi training. You gotta start young. So my dumb notes are the street that they work on is called Dog Street, and Sion's clothes have it written on them. And the reason I find this interesting is because the character Pence in Kingdom Hearts wears a Dog Street tank top. So that's a reference to this game, if you didn't know. And another stray thought is no one in this game says, I'm going to need to see some ID. In a game called The Bouncer, no one actually does any bouncing.
No.
The game should have started on one of them throwing somebody out of the bar.
Now, the bar is so empty. In fact, there isn't even a bartender from what I
You
can
do
tell.
beat people up in the bar. That's it for the first level.
That is true,
But they aren't bar patrons.
They are
They're
not bar
ninjas
patrons.
that come into the bar.
And they come in from the window, so you had no opportunity to bounce them at the door either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, there's no what is legally defined as bouncing happening in this game. I do want to shout out, though, to go back to your previous stray thought, that if anybody knows where I can buy that Dog Street jacket, I want it. It's not just a street, it doesn't just say Dog
Sion's,
Street
yeah.
on it. It has a big sheltie on the back.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny. And I want one. I also wouldn't mind Volt's Cactuar No Escape jacket either.
I bet you can find that patch.
That's true. Yeah, I would have to get 2 normal-sized ones and 1 huge one.
The only other thing I had, which I should have put at the beginning, but is just like I feel like this game has like group project vibes to me. Like it feels like the kind of thing where they just like they took a group of people who weren't working on anything and they were like, you have this much money, you have this team, go. And they were like, well, okay. We could do like for genre, how about beat 'em up, because those can be short, right? And we have access to Nomura, so he can do character design, and like we need to figure out how to like the camera in the PlayStation 2. We don't know how it works that well yet. We can use the fixed camera angles with this genre, and like it feels like all of the decisions are made like in that way, like just like a scramble for like what can we do.
Yeah, it is like, first of all, Nomura wasn't like hot shit for another like couple of years, right?
He wasn't a director. I mean, he was kind of hot shit ever since. He's the first credit in this game.
Yeah.
It's because he did the character designs for Final Fantasy VII, and that's what people know him for.
True. Yeah. So I guess they could have gotten him involved. Like, him getting involved is more of a get, probably, for this team than I maybe gave it credit for. I was just like, why not?
Yeah, like, Kingdom Hearts was his directorial debut.
Mm-hmm.
And he has been hot shit ever since then.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's definitely interesting. I agree, though. I think it feels like the development was very focused, but focused on a weird set of priorities.
Yeah, like it came out really weird, and like hearing it like on paper, you would think like, oh, there had to have been like someone on the team always wanted to make a beat 'em up or something, but it feels like it's lacking that.
Yeah.
It almost feels like they drew it out of a hat.
No, yeah, like the thing at the top of their priorities list seemed to be make it look real good.
Yeah.
Like, can we make this look really good on a PlayStation 2?
What can we do with the PS2?
Mm-hmm.
They came up with that rhyme, and they wrote it on the whiteboard for motivation.
Yep.
They all touched it on the way out of the office each day. They slapped it.
Mm-hmm. And it slowly wore out.
Mm-hmm.
So it said, what can yup? It's just such a strange product, and I feel like we're now both doing our final thoughts in this thought, so maybe we should proceed to our fighting thoughts.
My fighting thoughts are so this was suggested for Fanbruary. Shout out Fanbruary, going out with a bang.
Going out with a bounce.
Yeah, going out just like that. The Raiden character got blasted by those fucking spaceship exhausts. The most glorious scene in the game, other than the Independence Day one. But so yeah, this came up in the suggestions, and I was like, "Oh hell yeah, that's like this weird Square Enix beat 'em up that I know about. Like, let's do that one." And it didn't disappoint. My overactive imagination made me think it might be weirder, but definitely still plenty weird and enjoyable. Yeah, the story has all of that like Square Enix weirdness, but in a small enough dose that I think it actually kind of like it benefits this. Like it has like that B movie feel, and it makes like a nice cocktail for like how long this game is. It makes it very entertaining. And like the combat mechanics and things are sloppy. Yeah, as like we said, it feels very much. This was like their first PS2 game, and you very much it's like right on the sleeve that you can tell that they're working out how to make a game on the PS2. So yeah, you do have to deal with that jank, but like it's mostly serviceable. It doesn't feel too bad to play. It even gets some of the humor from the gameplay mechanics, just like knocking everybody down.
Yes.
And kicking robots and stuff. But so yeah, this was like a enjoyable romp that I know I would have loved as a kid. Like I said, it would have been a perfect sleepover game. Like I can just imagine how that would have been. So yeah, it's like a fun, weird old game to spotlight.
It sure is. I just during your final thoughts, I did quickly pull up the recommendation for the bouncer. One, thank you, Jack. We didn't say it before. Is the one who suggested it over in the Discord. His description of it was very short, linear beat 'em up with 3 protagonists and Square's first PlayStation 2 game.
Mm-hmm.
You did not prepare us in any way for what this game was going to be like. Even though you said exactly what you do and everything that was notable about it, you somehow managed to leave out the fucking wild ride that it took me on. So yeah, I really enjoyed playing this game. Whether I think it's a good game is like totally up in the air. I have no idea. But it is the strangest thing to sit down and do, because you'll play the game for about, I did time this, the average, not like did time and then put it in a Excel sheet and actually get an average. But on average, the levels are like about 2.5 minutes long, some of which are a lot shorter and others are much longer. And the game takes about an hour and a half to play and has, I don't know, like 15 to 17 levels that you're actually playing in. So it skews very heavily towards presenting you with cutscenes and putting you into the fights basically as a way to transition between them. It is like the reverse porn, where the fight scenes are there so that you can get more of the plot, which is what you're there for. And I really enjoyed the plot and thought that the mechanics were so light that I never felt like overwhelmed, and it never became too difficult. And I don't know, it was never unenjoyable. And it really is worth it just to sort of see what the hell was going on with this game. So, yeah, 9.5 out of 10. Best game of the year. Thank you for listening to NOCLIP Pocket this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time, we're going to be talking about Dragon's Lair, which is the Don Bluth weird... It was in arcades, even though it felt like it had no business being there.
I've wanted to check these out for a long time. He made this in a game called Space Ace, which is basically the same thing but in space. Mm-hmm. Where they have like and if you don't know, Don Bluth made like Land Before Time and All Dogs Go to Heaven and
Five Will Goes West.
Yeah, those like 80s, 90s movies. And he made these games for arcades. Like they're like, you know, his hand drawn animation. They look beautiful. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they're like interactive movies, basically. Like you're on a screen, you have to like split second, like choose a direction to go in, and it's kind of like a gotcha game. Like you have to keep playing it over and over because it's an arcade game and it wants your money,
of course.
And to try to make it through the game to just see the end. So mostly just interested in it because it's so unique and looks cool.
It does look very cool. But until that time, you can get a hold of us. All of our contact information is on our website at noclippodcast.com or on splattershot.pro. There you can find links to our email address, our Twitter account, the Discord, where you can post games like these that we did on for Fanbruary, in our suggestions channel, or talk about the games over in the game discussion channel. Very literally named channels in our Discord. That conciseness is what you come to us for. And you can go to our YouTube, which has all of our old episodes, like Andy, Final Fantasy X.
There you go. Kingdom Hearts 3.
The story explanation for Kingdom Hearts. Bounce that like button.
Also, The World Ends With You. It's another Square. We only talk about the Square Enix games that Nomura worked on.
It is weird. We're just like strangely attracted to his weird ass style. I don't know why that is.
Because we both played games that he made when we were young.
That's true. Ring that bell. I did use my ball partner.
You loved the penis enlarger. Now, in 2022, order the ball partner with just 3 easy installments of $99.99.